Twice a year we recite the Haftarah from Treyasa, from Zechariah. There is the Zechariah. Once on Shabbos Parshas B'Haloischa and on Shabbos Chanukah. So there's Rashi writes in the opening comment on Zechariah. Zechariah is the most obscure of all the Nevi'im. It's very hard to know what he's driving at. So Zechariah has a Mara HaNevuah, that there are two olive trees and the olives are falling down by themselves, falling into a contraption, and the contraption squeezes out the olive oil, and then there's a big puddle full of oil. And from this big puddle, there's a menorah, beautiful golden menorah, that has, like the menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, has 7 neiros, 7 cups on top to hold wicks and oil. And there are 49 streams of oil from this puddle. 7 streams of oil go into each one of the 7 containers on top. What is this supposed to represent? So he speaks about, later on, he speaks about the Shnei B'nei HaYitzor, Ha'omdim Lefnei Hashem, the 2 olive oil men. Who the 2 olive oil men? So Rashi quotes from the Medrash, the Kohen Gadol needs Mashiach B'Shem and Amishcha, and the Melech from the Malchus Beis David, we call him the Melech HaMashiach, because only Malchus Beis David has Mashiach B'Shem and Amishcha. Shaul and all the others had Mashiach B'Shem parsimony oil. Parsimony is a bush and it has berries and you squeeze out. I remember years ago they had a big news, the first page in the New York Times, they found a jug of parsimony oil from the days of Yoshke, 2,000 years ago. They explain on the first page in the New York Times all the news that's incorrect, all the news that fit to print. Whenever you're there, when something happened, and you read the way they write it up, it's always all wrong. I remember they wrote up about, there was a Chanukah Sabayis on Broya's new Beis Medrash, so they wrote it all up. So they wrote that the Broya's people are very orthodox, very observant, but they don't have a beard, they're clean shaven, because they shave with a ram's horn. They must have answered. They said we shave with a shaver. So they thought a shafer is a shofar. The Jews shave with a ram's horn. Whenever something happens in the yeshiva, they write always incorrect. Whenever something happens in Eretz Yisrael, yes, people who live in it, so it's always incorrect. So this was also incorrect. It says, what is parsimony oil? Parsimony oil was the shemen that they used to anoint the Davidic kings. Just the opposite. The Davidic kings were anointed with Shemen Mishchas Kodesh, Shemen HaParsimon was Hershel, for those who are not the descendants from David HaMelech. Shemen HaParsimon was an imitation of the Shemen HaMishkan, not for the Davidic kings. So the Shnei B'nei HaYitzor, the 2 olive trees, represent the 2 people, Omdim Lefnei Hashem. Kohen Gadol is praying to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In the Bayis Sheni, there was no Mashiach B'Shem and Amishcha. They were at the end of towards the end of the Bayis Rishon period, Yoshio HaMelech, it's a pasuk in Divrei Yomim, and the Gemara talks about Yoshio HaMelech, who was Goynei's the Oren with the Luchas, with the Tzintzenes Amon, and the Shemen HaMishcha. So there was no Kohen Gadol Mashiach B'Shem and Amishcha. There was a Meruba B'Godim. So that doesn't make sense. This story, Chagas Char Malach, at the beginning of the Bayis Sheni period, and Zachariah sees a vision of a golden era, a golden menorah, and the oil gets squeezed out by itself. And it goes in like everything happens wonderful. Such a beautiful... Bayis Sheni was full of machlekas from day number 1. They had trouble from the Apikursim. The Mishnah says, Mishikil Kalo HaMinim, when the Apikursim started to tumble, then whenever they would say a bracha in the Beis HaMikdash, they said, Baruch Atah Hashem min ha'olam ad ha'olam. Magen Abraham, let's say they're davening Shemona Esrei. They would always say min ha'olam ad ha'olam, because the Midim didn't believe in ha'olam haba. So when was that min ha'olam ad ha'olam? So the Meforshim and the Mishnah say, that was day number 1, the first day of Bayis Sheni. And there were periods of time during the Bayis Sheni that the Beis HaMikdash was run by the Tzedukim, by the Apikursim. And they were bringing their Korban Shaloi Kedin. Nobody was Yotzei. They were always bringing the Musafim of Shavuos on a Sunday. It's not correct. And then one of the Megillus times when he took him to meet, he took him when they succeeded in kicking out the Kohanim who were apikusim, so then they made a yontif. The Chacham made a yontif there. So this vision that he sees with there was no Shemin HaMishcha in the Bayis Sheni, and he envisions a period that everything was gold and beautiful and happens by itself. Everything was with Machloikis and Bayis Sheni, and everything was incomplete. That what he says, Mo'ela Adoni. So the Navi, Zachari asked the Malach Adoiva, but he asked the Malach, what does it mean? So he says, Halo Yadaitu, you know what it is. He said, I don't know what it is. What are they fighting back and what he does know, he doesn't know. So Chaim Soloveitchik explained, he knew what it represents, but they knew it doesn't correspond to reality. Bayis Sheni was not a peaceful period. It was full of machloikis and full of apikusim, and nothing happened by itself. So that's what the Navi is told, Lo b'chad v'lo b'chad kim beruchi, v'hotzias hebben harosha. They took out the cornerstone. What does it mean? Lo b'chad v'lo b'chad. So Rab Chaim quoted the Rambam in Hilchos Beis HaBchira. The Rambam says that Kedusha Sa'aretz, the first time around, the days of Yeshua ben Nun, was based on the Kibush Ha'aretz. It took 7 years to conquer all of Eretz Yisrael and the Lamed Aleph Malachim. There were 31 kings who had palaces in Eretz Yisrael. They didn't all have a nation in Eretz Yisrael and had palaces. They had to conquer all of these Lamed Aleph Malachim. So that says in Tanakh it took 7 years. Then the Gemara in Erchin has a historical tradition, an oral tradition, doesn't appear in Tanakh. Gemara said that's Gemara, that's a tradition, that it took 7 years to do Chanukah Sars. 7 years the conquering, that's Psukim in Yoshua. 7 years to do the Chanukah. Chanukah was the Gemara of the Kibush. So the Kibush was the Mekadesh of Eretz Yisrael. So that's what the Rambam explains at the end of the Kufa Bayis Rishon, when the conquest of Eretz Yisrael was undone, and the Jews didn't have control anymore, so the whole Kedusha Sa'aretz disappeared. But the Bayis Shlishi will be a continuation. The Bayis Sheni was not a continuation of the Bayis Rishon. Bayis Rishon was Or Ad HaYisod, but everything was destroyed, and they had to start all over again. And there were Kohanim who were 85 years old. The Bayis Rishon was Chor for 70 years, so they were Kohanim were 85 years old. They brought already a minchas chinuch in the Bayis Rishon. You're not allowed to be makro karbonis, a guy not allowed to be makro until he first brings a minchas chinuch. If he brought karbonis before he brought minchas chinuch, so it's a discussion in the Sifra whether the karbonis are pasul or kosher. There are two girses. Shonim had two girses in the Torah's Kohanim, whether it's pasul b'di'evet or not. So the Psukim say that even Kohanim who brought a minchas chinuch during the Bayis Rishon had to bring a new minchas chinuch in the Bayis Sheni. It's not a hemshech from the Bayis Rishon, but the Bayis HaShlishi will be a hemshech of the Bayis HaSheni. And the Malach tells Zechariah Navi, what I'm showing you is not the Tkufa's Bayis Sheni. I'm showing you the Tkufa Bayis HaShlishi. And the Bayis Sheni is this part of Rab Soloveitchik added on. This was not from Rab Chaim. The whole Bayis Sheni was like a cornerstone for the Bayis HaShlishi, the Haskalah. Bayis Sheni, everything was shvach, but it was a Haskalah for the Bayis HaShlishi. If there would be a Kohen who brought a minchas chinuch on Bayis Sheni, and he's still alive 2,000 years later when the Bayis HaShlishi will be built, he won't have to bring a new minchas chinuch. Bayis Shlishi is a hemshech of the Bayis Sheni, but the Bayis Sheni was not a hemshech of the Bayis Rishon. So that's what the Rambam says. Kedusha Sa'aretz was based on Kibush. So then at the end of the Bayis Rishon period, when the Kibush of Eretz Yisrael was undone, so the Kedusha was undone. But the Kedusha Hamikdash was not based on Kibush. Kedusha Hamikdash was Beruchi, Beruch Hashem. So the Bayis HaShlishi will be a hemshech of the Bayis Sheni. So that's where Chaim understood. Lo b'chad v'lo b'choyach. The Kedusha of the Mikdash is not based on Kibush. Kim Beruchi Hashuas Hashchina. So the Beis Hamikdash is going to be hemshech. And the Navi tells the Malach, Zechariah, I'm showing you a vision of the Bayis HaShlishi. Then they also, Rab Soloveitchik said this over. And then a good chunk of this appears in print There used to be a Mizrahi leader, Rabbi Zev Gold. He was a very good speaker. I heard him once speak in Yiddish. Rabbi Soloveitchik said he personally picked up a lot from Zev Gold how to deliver a drasha. Rabbi Zev Gold was famous in Europe. He used to speak from Mizrach in Europe. He was a good speaker then also. So he has a book. His name is Gold, Zev Gold. He has a book that's called Nivei Zohav. So he has it on Parshas Ba'aloischa, I think, on Haftarah. He quotes this comment. I don't think he heard it from Rabbi Chaim. I think he heard it from Rabbi Soloveitchik. And then Rabbi Soloveitchik got it on that the Nevuah says the Kohen Gadol, in his vision, the Kohen Gadol was wearing begadim tzoim, and the Malach said, "Hasira habegadim hatzoim me'alecha, v'hal beishos hamachlot tzos." Take off the begadim hatzoim and put on nice begadim. What is that referring to? So I think Rashi says on Trei Osar, quoting from the Yalkut Shimoni, the begadim hatzoim is something bichutz legufo. So it means his children, the children of Yeshua Kohen Gadol, were intermarried. So that was. And a Jewish girl who marries a goy, the children will be Jewish. But a Jewish man who marries a nochris, that's considered like shmad. The minhag used to be in Europe that if a Jewish man would marry a nochris, the family would sit shiva. If a Jewish girl would marry a nochri, the children are Jewish. It's not considered shmad. There are more paskins halacha l'maisa and the siman about Yehareg Val Yavar and Yeredeya. He paskins like the Ramban Mulchamis and Perek Ben Sora Mora in Sanhedrin, that if a Jewish girl is forced to live with a goy, that's not Yehareg Val Yavar. But if a Jewish man is going to be forced to live with a nochris, that's Yehareg Val Yavar. That's considered a bigger aver. So here, Yeshua Kohen Gadol, there was nothing wrong with him. His sons, his children were intermarried. So they just like the begodim are something separate from the person, so too the children are separate from the Kohen Gadol. So he had begodim tzoim means that there was a psul in the family, but not by him. His children were married to Nochrios. That's considered like shmad. So they said that the Navi said, we're going to take off the begodim, we're going to put them on kli begodim. That meant in nevuah that the children will be chayzrim b'tshuva. What's so bad what does it got to do? Is it his problem? So Rabbi Soloveitchik said, B'Shem Rab Chaim, the first Mishnah in Yuma says that on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol has to say Vidui 3 times, says in Chumash. So the first time, B'Chipa Bado B'Ad Beisa Zu Ishto. That's the first Mishnah in Yuma. The Kohen Gadol has to be married with Nisuin. He only has everything, that's not enough. Beisa Zu Ishto only applies if he has Nisuin. So if he's married with Nisuin, if he's not married, he can function as the Kohen Gadol. Pashta said the Tosis Rishonim on the first staff, on the first Mishnah Yom is Mesupik if it's Ma'akev b'di'evet. Pashta said it is Ma'akev. If he's a single Kohen Gadol, he doesn't have Nisuin, he can function on Yom Kippur. It's Ma'akev Pashtas. So since the Kohen Gadol, the first Vida has to v'chipa adda bad beis zuishtoi. Let's say the Kohen Gadol is married to a woman who's worshiping Avodah Zarah. Mumal Avodah Zarah dina ka'akum. So he can't bring a korban on behalf of himself and his wife. The wife is a Mumal Avodah Zarah. He can't bring a korban for a Nachri who is Avodah Zarah. You can accept korbanos. That's a Gemara Chulin Daf Hey. You can accept korbanos from a Nachri even if the Nachri is an Avodah Zarah, provided that the korban that he brings to the Beis Hamikdash is La Shamayim, not L'Avodah Zarah. But you can't bring korbanos from a Jew who's an Avodah Zarah. Mumadina Kakum is worse than an Akum. A Jew who's Avodah Zarah is worse than a Goy. Goy is Avodah Zarah. You can't accept korbanos from him if it's La Shamayim. So if the Kohen Gadol's wife would be Avodah Zarah, the Kohen Gadol wouldn't be able to do the Avodah. What if his children, he doesn't have to have children. He only has to be married. What if, so he doesn't have children, that's not a problem. What if he does have children, and the children are over there with his Zarah? So I think Rab Chaim said, based on a Mishnah Melech, when an Eved Ivri doesn't want to go free, after Sheish, So they do Ritziyah. So he says, so it would appear that having the children is also part of Beiso. Beiso Zawishto is a bare minimum. If he's not married, he can't say Beiso. But if he has children, so the children are also part of Beiso. So it calls man that Yeshua Kohen Gadol's children were intermarried. That's like Mumel Avodah Zarah. That's like a Mishumid. So the Kohen Gadol wouldn't be able to be Makar Karbanos even though he doesn't have any psul. If the children are possible. He doesn't have to have children. But if he has children, they're up there with the Zarah, then they should be included in Beiso, because he has the children, and then they're up there with the Zarah. He can't be Makar of the Korban on their behalf. So that's what the Malach told them in Nevuah. The children are going to be Chayzim B'Tshuvah. And by the time it comes Yom Kippur, it will be kosher to be Makar of the Karbanos. There, Reb Chaim pointed out also the pasuk. Malach says, "Korem Hashem tzvokes midrachei telech." If you will keep the Torah mitzvahs, emisem shmarti tishma, v'gam atot tadinas beisi, gam tishmares chatzeiroi, I think. Satem locha malchem bein ha'oimnem ha'ela. Yeah. So Reb Chaim understood from this pasuk that it's the role of the Kohen Gadol to supervise all the hakrovos, hakarbonos, and the Beis Hamikdash. That's what the Rambam writes in Hilchos Klei Hamikdash, that you appoint a Kohen Gadol, and his quote of the Sepharta of the Kohen Gadol, that's the Lashon Ram, is to be in the Beis Hamikdash all day long. And he's allowed to wear big day Kohuna G'doli, not Hashatnas. That's no machlok. He's allowed to wear big day Kohen Shatnas all day long, because that's his job, to be in the Beis Hamikdash all day long. The Rambam says a Kohen Hedyot only allowed to wear big day Kohuna with Shatnas when he's about to be Makro Karbonis. He can put it on in the morning up until the time that he does the Karbonis. He doesn't plan to do more. He has to take it off right away. The Abneit is Shatnas. He has to take off the Abneit right away. But the Kohen Gadol can wear the big day Kohuna all day long, because that's his job, to be in the Beis Hamikdash and officially to supervise the Hakrobas Kol HaKarbanos. So these were the comments that Rav Solesek B'Shem Reb Chaim on this Haftarah. There is a binig that's mentioned in Shulchan Aruch, and Mechaber mentioned a binig, that you madlik, you have to do hadlokas hadneres b'beiso. Everyone has to be madlik b'beiso. But you're madlik in shul, and no one's yotzi but the hadloka in shul. That's what it says in Mechaber, because it's not b'beiso. But you have to be madlik in the shul. And you say a bracha. So that's the Ber Agola. Next to the Shulchan Aruch has the kasha. Usually Ber Agola just gives marmukaimus. Once every 50 pages he has a comment. He says something. So he has a comment. The Mechaber is of the opinion that when you say Halal Rosh Chodesh is only a minute, you don't say a bracha, because it's only a minute. When you be madlik the neris on Erev Yom Kippur, you don't say a bracha because it's only a minute. So how come over here there's only a minute? How come the minig is that you say a bracha when you light the neris in the Beis HaKnesses? Rab Soleshi didn't say a teretz, but that's a kasha that's bothersome. So the Vilna Gaon writes always the Marmakomis. Vilna Gaon was the great-grandson of the Ber Agola. So he wrote his Ber Agola on the assumption, you're reading the Ber Agola. Ber Agola gives you a Maramakom for the whole Sif. And the Vilna Gaon gives you a Maramakom on every phrase in the Sif, every word. The whole Sif comes from Menorah stuff, Yutes, whatever. The Vilna Gaon tells you that line comes from the Raman, that word comes from Taisus. He gives you more Maramakoms. But he's assuming that you're reading the Ber Agola with what he writes together. So the Vilna Gaon writes, where's the mocker for the minig to be madlik neris and the Beis HaKnesses, and no one's yotze with it. So he says the mocker is from the Masechah Sofrim that Taisus quotes, that's quoted in Shulchan Aruch, that the first night of Pesach, and the Chutz La'aretz, the first 2 nights of Pesach, you say Halal Shalom in Shul with a bracha. Why do you say Halal Shalom in Shul? Why is that a mocker? So Rav Moshe Soloveitchik explained the Hallel by the Haggadah is for the purpose of Pirsuminis, and that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara has a sofek in the middle of Kriyas Shema. There's a head to be mapsik, Me'akavim, Me'ayira, Bein HaProkim, Be'emtza Perik, you have a head. What about by Kriyas Hallel on Chanukah? on the one hand, Kriya Shema Deraisa, so Halal Chanukah is only the Rabbanon. So there should be a kavach harma that you have a right to be mafsik. On the other hand, the Gemara says maybe it's mochama because it's for the purpose of pisuminis. So that's the Gemara brachas. That Gemara, the Talmidei Hachsam Sefer asks on the Rebbe. Hachsam Sefer writes in one of the tshuvas that reciting Halal Chanukah is deraisa. So the old essay is beferish against the Gemara. The Gemara says Halal Chanukah is the Rabbanon, as opposed to Kriya Shema, which is deraisa. So they work on that kash. Talmidei Hachsam Sefer have anything their Rebbe said is correct, they had to defend it. So they gave. Now they print new Chasam Seifers. They have a likut in the back of what all the comments that the Talmidim made on all the Shuvas. So they have a comment on this, they defend what he says. So the Vilna Gaon seems to be saying that the Hadlokas Neiris in the Beis HaKnesses, the meaning that developed in later generations is a carryover from the minig to recite Hallel with a bracha in shul on the first 2 nights of Pesach. What is the connection? So Rav Soloveitchik said in the name of his father that there is reciting of Hallel on Pesach night by the Seder's for the purpose of Pisum Isa. So how many people do you have at your Seder at the home? 25 people, you invite a lot of people. You don't have a big crowd. In shul there's going to be a bigger crowd. So it sounds like whenever there's a mitzvah, that's for the purpose of Pisumei Nisa. So if you do it in shul, when you have a bigger crowd, so you get a greater Pisumei Nisa. So that's why the Masech HaSofim says, Taisa quotes like that, Menorah quotes it, you say Hallel with a bracha the first 2 nights of Pesach in shul. Because a tzibur of tefillah is going to be a bigger tzibur than what you're going to have by the Seder in your home. And that's why it makes sense to be Madlakas Haneres in shul, because Hadlakas Haneres is for the purpose of Pirsumei Nisa. So if you do Hadlakas Haneres in shul by the time of Tefillah, the kesher with the Tefillah, there's a tziruf of the tzibur for the Tefillah purposes. So it's based on that Masech HaSofrim, that whenever you have a mitzvah that's for the purpose of Pirsumei Nisa, you should try to do it bit tzibur so you'll enhance the Pirsumei Nisa. So Moshe Soloveitchik thought that that's the reason why the minig is that in shul we light Neres Chanukah before Tzeitzah Korab. You daven mincha before Shkia, then you do Hadlokas on Neres right after Shkia, then daven Marav right afterwards. But at home, most people wait till Tzeitzah Korab to be mad like the Menorah. The Vilna Gaon holds you should light right away at the Shkia. But most people don't do that. So why is it that in shul everybody does that? So Moshe Soloveitchik thought you have to have a tziruf of a tzibur. So what's mitzarep them? He thought when you say a davar should be kedusha, that's mitzarep them. So when they daven mincha, they said kaddish in between Asher and Shemana Esrei. Then it said kaddish tiskabel after mincha, and the minyan is still mitzuref yachad because they're going to daven ma'ariv right away. So the minyan is still mitzuref till you're going to say Baruch, you're going to say Kaddish Tiskabel at the end of Ma'ariv. So he thought it's only proper to say a bracha, Lakas Haneres, in the Beis HaKnesses if it's in between Mincha and Ma'ariv. The minyan, the 10 people, when it's start for Yachad from Mincha and the tziruf is still there, didn't evaporate yet because they planned to daven Ma'ariv right away. So in between, that's when they do the Hadlok. And a lot of shuls on Erev Shabbos, they'll say, the Chazan will say the Hadlokah, the bracha Hadlokah on Erev before Mincha, because it's getting late. So Moshe Soloveitchik thought that that's not proper. He said, you can only be Yotzei the Hadlokah, the Beis HaKnesses, in between Mincha and Ma'ariv. I'm a Tzoi Shabbos, we don't do that. We daven Mincha before the Shkia. You're not being Madlok on Erev till after Ma'ariv. So he said, the minig, Rabbi Soloveitchik said, the minig, I think he said where he came from. I don't know whether he said where he came from or I'm brisk. He said the minig, one of the two was that on Motzei Shabbos you do the Hadlokas Haneres before Vihinoyim. after everybody davens Ma'ariv on Motzei Shabbos, so the Chazan says Chatzi Kaddish, and everybody says Inyonei and After Kodesh. Then the Chazan says Kaddish Tiskabel, and everybody says V'yitnu Lecha. So in most shuls, you do the Hadlokas Neiris after Kaddish Tiskabel. So that's Rav Soloveitchik said that's a problem according to what his father said. You're not going to light Imi to Mincha and Ma'ariv because it's still Shabbos. You have to wait till Tzais HaKohon. So what was Mitzaref to people as a minyan? So has to be in the middle of Ma'ariv. So he started with Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu needs a minyan. And Kaddish before Shemona Esrei Ma'ariv needs a minyan. So you have a tziruf of a minyan. And the tziruf remains until Kaddish Tiskabel. Kaddish Tiskabel, the end of the Tefillah B'tziba. So how can it be that that in many of the shuls they light Neres Chanukah after Kaddish Tiskabel? All tziruf of the minyan evaporated already. So he said, but he came from in Europe, there were makpid that they had to do hadlokas haneris before Kaddish Tiskabel. So they wouldn't do it after V'hinoyam. After the Chatzi Kaddish, after the Shemona Esrei, before he said V'hinoyam, they would do hadlokas haneris, and then the Kaddish Tiskabel would be later. So you had the tzir for the minyan for the first half of Ma'ariv, and then the minyan is still mitzurf till he say the Kaddish Tiskabel. The common minig that everybody else has, the common minig is Hershel. You say you do have lokas haneris after the Kaddish Tiskabel, so but the minyan already disappeared. Minyan didn't vanish. So they thought that the minig is that you recite Havdalah in shul, and until you say Havdalah in shul, everyone is bound to observe Tosefes Shabbos. The Yechidim are not supposed to do malacha until they say Havdalah in shul. He said maybe there's still a tziruf of the minyan, assuming like his father assumed. You have to have a tziruf of a minyan before you light an eris, and then the minyan should still be there for something else after hadlokas haneris. So hadlokas haneris is done by the tzibur that was nitztaref yachad for the tefillah b'tziba. So he thought maybe because he's still going to have reciting of Havdalah in shul. I thought maybe because of Kaddish after Aleinu, because there are more rites in many shuls. The practice is after Aleinu. If there's an oval in the first 11 months after a parent dies, so the oval says Kaddish after Aleinu. If there's no oval, so you don't say Kaddish after Aleinu. So the Ramah quotes an earlier source that you should say Kaddish even if there's no oval. In other words, that's the end of the Tefillah B'tzibur. Tefillah B'tzibur is over when you say the Kaddish after Aleinu. That's the Lishitasai. The Mechaber says you can take off tefillin how long do you have to have tefillin on? So the Mechaber says you have to have the tefillin on until after the Chazan Schachter, let's say. You have to have the tefillin on till after Uvalat Tzion, then you say Kaddish Tiskabel. Then you can take the tefillin off after Kaddish Tiskabel. A lot of people take off before. And the Ramah disagrees, says no, you should take off the tefillin to the Kaddish after Aleinu. So Rav Soloveitchik said that's Lishitasai, that the Mechaber holds Tefillah B'tzibur is over with Kaddish Tiskabel, and the Ramah says not so. The Tefillah B'tzibur is over till the Kaddish after Aleinu, even if there's no Yosem, you got to say that Kaddish. That's what they do here in the Beis Medrash, because Rav Soloveitchik it's a Ramah and Shulchan Aruch. Many shuls they makbid on that. Always to have someone say Kaddish after Aleinu. A lot of shuls they makbid. So I don't know why when Rav Soloveitchik was working on this issue, how can on the assumption that you have to have a tzibur shel tefillah, you have to be mitzvah. So when you start Ma'ariv, say Baruch Hu, then you say Chatzi Kaddish before Shemona Esrei. You have a tziruf of tzibur for tefillah. Then the tziruf is still there until you say the Kaddish after Aleinu. That's going to be later. So why did he have to come up with a new answer? That we're going to say Havdalah in shul, and you're not supposed to do any malach until Havdalah. Havdalah is Havdalah b'tzibur. The tzibur is still mitzurf till Havdalah. I don't know why, but that was his suggestion.
I'll go back to the Seder. We spoke about Halal on the first 2 nights of Pesach. To pursuing Yisa, is that a din in Tzibur, or is that a din in like Tzibur 10 men? Or is that a din in people? Because if I'm going to have 25 people over a Seder, but I'm going to daven a shul that only has 10 men, but the 20 people when we say there's going to be 7 men and 8 women and a bunch of kids. So, is that a greater presuming of my Seder? Should I be saying a bracha on Hal and Shul? Or is it a
Rav Soloveitchik always thought that even though we usually follow the Minhagim of the Ramah, and the Baalei HaTosah had that meaning, not to say Hallel and Shul on Leil Pesach, but he thought, like the Gra, that the Gra recommended you should say Hallel. The Gra thinks that we should follow the Mechaber here, not the Ramah. You should say Hallel on Leil HaSeder. Every year when he would give a shiur for the rabbinic alumni on Hilchos Pesach, so he would always mention that. If you can introduce that they'll say Hallel and Shul with a bracha the first 2 nights without making world war, then he recommended you should say Hallel. It's here there's a shul here in the neighborhood, the Aguda, closed already. So the Aguda has a lot of yekkes who used to have a lot of yekkes down there, so the yekkes will walk out. If we say Hallel, they're going to walk out. So they made pshar. So they have on the first 2 nights of Pesach, they say Aleinu and Kaddish Yosem, and then whoever wants to walk out walks out, and then they have the minyan left, and then they say Hallel with a bracha. So according to Rav Moshe Soloveitchik, that's not right. If they already said Kaddish after Aleinu, finished. There's no more tzibur. You have to do just like he said, just like you have to do the reciting of Hallel when you have a tziruf of a minyan. They were mitzdarfei Ma'ariv, and they didn't finish Ma'ariv yet. They didn't say Kaddish Tiskabel. So you should do Ba'ad Lokas Haneres on Chanukah. But you're going to make this pshara, and then you're going to have the Chazan and say, you're going to say Kaddish Tiskabel, then they say the Kaddish after Aleinu, and half the people walk away, so there's no more minyan. Even if you have 10 people, Al Pi Din, is to say, Kol Be'asor Ashchinta Shari. If you have 10 people, there's Ashras Hashchina. So he said, 10 Jews reading the Morgen Journal, reading the Yiddish newspaper. He'd always joke like that. No, 10 Jews who did star for Yachad to a Davish B'Kedusha. The davening, that's called the tzibur. Rav Soloveitchik said, as a young child, he rarely visited his Zayder Reb Chaim. He was brought up by the other Zayder, Rav Elia Feinstein. There was a Moshe's uncle. And Moshe and Rav Soloveitchik's mother were first cousins. Both fathers' name was Feinstein. One of them, his name was Feinstein. The other one, he married a girl whose name is Feinstein, so he took on his wife's second name. But so Rav Soloveitchik said he was really by Reb Chaim when he was very young. But he remembers once he was there for Chanukah, and Reb Chaim was talking about a medrash that we say in the davening, Al Anisim, he say, Raftas Rivam Dantas Dinam and the Kamtas think Masam. He say the 3 Lashonis. The same is on Purim, when you read the Megillah, you say the bracha after Mikra Megillah, Arabas Yuvenu Adanis Dinenim Anokem V'Snik Masem. The same 3 things. What are the 3 things? Raftas Rivam means HaKadosh Baruch Hu acted like a Baldin to Taina Am. Like a Baldin has to present his case. So the Rebbeinu Shalom presents the argument on behalf of the Jewish people. The Antaz Din HaKadosh Baruch Hu judges the case. He's the Dayan. The Kamtan Sikmasim, he's the Shoter. You have to have Shoftim, you have to have Shotrim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu acts as all 3. Raftas Rivam, he presents the Titans on behalf of Kol Yisrael. Dantas Dinim, he's the guy in the Kamtan Sikmasim, he's the Shoter that punished the Umas Ha'olam. So the Medrash Rabbah on Bereshis, I forgot already which parsha, Medrash Rabbah has a stira between 2 psukim. The one pasuk, I think I must have printed this in one of the svarim that I wrote about Rav Soloveitchik. The Medrash says, in one pasuk it says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is standing in judgment. Did I write it down? Nitzav L'Riv Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu stands in judgment. The other pasuk says he's sitting in judgment. So which is it, standing or sitting? So the Medrash Rabbah says it depends if he's judging the Jewish people or judging a Messiah. Why does it depend? So the standard Meforshim on the bottom of the page of the big Medrash Rabbah suggests when judging the Jewish people, he does it quickly. He doesn't want to have too much of a punishment for Bnei Yisrael. So he does it b'amidah, b'kitza. But by the Umas Olam, he wants to punish them for everything that they did, so he does it b'yeshiva. That's how the Mefarshim, the standard Mefarshim say. So Rav Soloveitchik said Rab Chaim had a different interpretation, that the din is, when you have a din Torah, the Dayanim have to be b'yeshiva, and Baladinim have to be ba'amida. Baladinim, when they present their case, have to stand. V'yomdu shnei hadashem asher lahem hariv lifnei Hashem be'elu hadayanim. Omdu shnei hanashim, the Baladinim have to be ba'amida when they present the tainas. Lifnei Hashem means the Dayanim, they should be b'yeshiva. So he said, the Medrash has to steer between the two psukim. Medrash gave the Baruch Shalom sits or he stands. Medrash said it depends on judging the Jews, judging the Goyim. So if judging the Goyim, then the Rebbeinu Shalom has to stand because Raftas Ribam. The pasuk said, "Gamas Hagei Asher Yavodu Don Anochi." What does it mean, Don Anochi? Pashim Shad Hakadosh Baruch Hu will judge them. So Rab Soloveitchik said, Rab Chaim thought Don Anochi means I will taina ois on behalf of the Jewish people. Like the Gemara has a din of taninam. So he said a few suggestions. Why did Rebbeinu Shalom have to taina on behalf of Klal Yisrael? So one suggestion was that we don't even know how great the hefset is. The Goyim, let's say by the Nazis, they killed so many tzaddikim, Talmid Chachamim, such a churban atar, we don't even know how great the hefset was. So whenever the Baladinim are not B'nai Hachin, they're not B'nai Taina. Yisraelim Malakuchas, they weren't there when their father, all the children are married already. They don't know what business the father did at the end of his life after they moved out. They don't know what he was doing. So then the din is Bezdin Tainas on behalf of the Baladinim. So he said that was one suggestion. Baruch Shalom is Taninan on behalf of Klal Yisrael, that that's why he stands. But when he judges, when he's judging B'nai Yisrael for the Averis that they did, he's not going to taina against them. So he just acts as a dayan. So a dayan has to be b'yeshiva. But when he's judging in order to punish the Umas Olam, so he acts both as a toyen, he does tanina, raftas riva means tainas on our behalf, and dantas dinam. The Gemar din is going to be b'yeshiva, and that taina is going to be b'amina. That was one suggestion. They gave another suggestion why. Rab Chaim gave another suggestion why the Rebbeinu Shalom tainas on behalf of Klal Yisrael. Because I think in Kuzari he has this idea that why is there so much anti-Semitism? Because the Jewish people represent the Rebbeinu Shalom in this world, and the Umas Olam are angry at God. They want to rebel against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So they're all the pogroms that they do against the Jewish people is really their way of rebelling against HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So that's why the Rebbeinu Shalom is the Baldin. He's really the one. When they make pogroms against the Jews, the one who's suffering is the Rebbeinu Shalom. So that's why the Rebbeinu Shalom advances the time. Now, so then she gave a third explanation. I forgot already why. I probably printed it. He gave three reasons in Rab Chaim why the Rebbeinu Shalom presents the taina on behalf of Klal Yisrael. When we recite Al HaMichya, so the Rishonim all say, if it's Rosh Chodesh or Chol Hamoed or Yom Tov Shabbos, you mention it. Chanukah and Purim you don't mention. How come? So different suggestions are given. Rab Soloveitchik gave one of the several suggestions. Chacham Avadia has a whole tshuva about this. He quotes different suggestions from the Rishonim. So some Rishonim say this suggestion, but Rab Soloveitchik explained it very nicely. He said, Al HaMichya is called Me'ein Sholosh. It's the abridged form of the benching. And when you say, when it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, in the benching you add Ritzei, which is a complete paragraph, or you add Yalav Yavai, which is a complete paragraph. So that's why you have to, when you have the abridged form of the bench, you have to mention something about Shabbos or about Yom Tov or about Chol Hamoed or Rosh Chodesh. But if it's going to be Chanukah and Purim, it says you don't say Al Anisim, you say Vi Al Anisim with a Vav. We thank you for Anisech Shebchol Nivnasech Davasech Shebcholes Erevabayke B'Tzorah and Vi Al Anisim. The Rambam has Al Anisim right after that. You don't say Al Kulam. You don't say Al Akol. After you sum up, then you say Vi Al Anisim. You've already finished the whole topic. So the Rambam has Vi Al Anisim. You say right after Erevabayke B'Tzorah and Vi Al Anisim Al Apurk, and it's a hemshich. It's a longer sentence. It's a longer paragraph. So since the Al HaMichya is supposed to be an abridged form of the benching, So you leave it out. You leave out the includes the nisim and the floors, Chanukah and Purim. But the Shabbos and Yontif, you add on with say Yal V'Yav is a whole paragraph. So you have to have a kitzur of that paragraph. So then Rab Soloveitchik added also. There was a Ruah tells the whole story. There was a machlekes between the Ri Hazaken Bala Tosis and his son Rabbeinu Elchanan. His son was killed al Kiddush Hashem during the Crusades. So, but we have Rabbeinu Elchanan. We have the Tosis on Abed Zar. We have the Rabbeinu Elchanan on Abed Zar. That's the original set of the Tosis. So they had a machlekes. The din is if a person recited Birchas Hamazon on Shabbos or Yontif, and he forgot to say Ritzei, Yalav Yavai, and then he says, B'nei B'rachma B'Yushalayim Amen, then he realized that he forgot to say Ritzei, Yalav Yavai, they say a bracha there, as long as he didn't begin Hatov HaMeitav yet. So the Rabbeinu Elchanan, the son, the Rabbeinu Elchanan was of the opinion that the same is true in benching. The same is true in the Shemona Esrei. Same is true in the Shemona Esrei. Let's say a person forgot to say Yalav Yavai in between Ritzei and B'Sechel Zayin and then Shilchat Tzim B'Rachamim. Forgot to say Yalav Yavai. And he says, Amachzu Shchenosa the Tzil, and he didn't stop Moedim yet. So just like in benching, if you forgot to say Yalav Yavai, you can say it in between that. It should have been recited in the middle of that bracha. If you didn't say in the middle, you can say it in between that bracha and the next bracha, provided you didn't start the next bracha yet. So the same is true by benching. The same is true, just like by benching, the same is true by Shemona Esrei. The person forgot to say Yalav Yavai, and he finished Amachzu Shchenosa L'Tzion, let him say Yalav Yavai before Moed. And the Ri disagreed, for various reasons. The Vilna Gaon paskins like the Ri. Shulchan Aruch, they paskin like the Rabbeinu Elchanan. So the Orzur tells the end of this story that this was an ongoing debate between the Ri and his son, Rabbeinu Elchanan. Then on one occasion later, the Ri had to travel to Paris with the Rabbeinu Tam to some kind of conference of Rabbanim, and it was Rosh Chodesh, and the Ri was davening Shemona Esrei next to Rabbeinu Tam. Rabbeinu Tam forgot Yalav Yavai in Shemona Esrei, and after he said Amachzu Shchenosa L'Tzion before he started Moedim, he did like Rabbeinu Elchanan did. So when the Ri saw that his uncle Rabbeinu Tam follows Rabbeinu Elchanan, he gave him to him. He said, okay, he's going to follow his son also, Rabbeinu Elchanan. So it's quoted in Shulchan Aruch like that. Shulchan Aruch quotes this Rabbeinu Tam with Rabbeinu Elchanan, that if a person forgot to say Yalav Yavai, and in the Shemona Esrei, if he reminds himself before he starts Moedim, he can say the Yalav Yavai there. So what if a person forgot to say Mashiv HaRuach, or he forgot to say the same Kalamatar, and he finished that bracha, but he didn't start the next bracha yet? So Shulchan Aruch, they say the same din. The Achronim say the same din. Rab Soloveitchik thought there's room to dinzach very easily. He said Yalav Yavai is an insert. It's a whole paragraph, self-contained paragraph. It's an insert that you place there. So if you say it in between the bracha of Ritzei and Moedim, that's where it belongs. Either in the middle of the bracha or after the bracha, before you start the next bracha. It's still there. But if the same Talamot, Mashiv HaRuach, is part of a paragraph. There's a comma before and a comma after. It's part of a whole sentence. So you finished the sentence incorrectly. You said the bracha at the end. Then you're going to say the same Talamot to the bracha after you already finished. The same Talamot has a vav, means in the middle of a sentence. So you can't finish the sentence after you already finished the whole paragraph. You already finished the whole paragraph with a chasim. That's what he suggested. It's usually assumed not so. It's usually assumed that just like the Rabbeinu Elchanan said, you can say Yalav Yavai as long as you didn't start the next bracha. So the same is true by Talamot Mashiv HaRuach as well. So that's what Rab Soloveitchik thought, because V'al Nisim starts with a vav. So when you're making a bridged form, when you say Me'en Shalosh, so you should leave out Chanukah and Purim. You're saying everything b'kitzur. So you say, Amisech Shebachol Yanimanu, Shai. We thank HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything, we're mekatzeh. But Shabbos and Yontif and Chol HaMoed and Rosh Chodesh, then you say Ritzei or Yalav Yavai in the benching, so that's a whole paragraph. So when you make the abridged form, you have to abridge something for that paragraph. In Shulchan Aruch they quote, this doesn't appear in the Gemara anywhere. Shulchan Aruch they quote from the Sheiltas. Sheiltas writes as if it's a brisa somewhere. If you have leftover oil in the menorah after Chanukah is over, so you have to burn it up. You're not allowed to use it for your own purposes. And we wouldn't recommend to save it next year for Chanukah because you're going to forget. In the course of a year, you're going to forget that this is hooked to the mitzvah, and you may use it for your own purposes. And it's hooked to the mitzvah even after Chanukah is over. So the Achronim all ask why. We have a brisa in Megillah, Gemara Megillah, that all the religious articles are divided into two categories of Tashmisha Mitzvah and Tashmisha Kedusha. And Afkamina La'alacha is Tashmisha Mitzvah after the Zman HaMitzvah is off. After Sukkot is over, the Esrog is no longer hooked to the Mitzvah side. But Mashainin came Tashmisha Kedusha, let's have Tefillin and Apostle. You can't just throw them out. You have to put it, even if it doesn't have Shem Hashem. Let's say you have Ritzuas, doesn't have Shem Hashem. You have to put it in the Shemus, because Tashmisha Kedusha, even after the Zman HaMitzvah is up, retain the Kedusha. So the Gemara says that the Shemesh Habineh Chanukah, also Lehonis Oraneh, also the Shtamish Leorah. So the Gemara says, why? B'chi Kedusha yesh bo? Does it have Kedusha? So it's Tashmisha Mitzvah. It's Tashmisha Mitzvah. Why does it remain hooked to the Mitzvah even after Chanukah is over? So apparently we follow the Masechah Sofrim, that you say, Haneres Alo L'Kodeshem. That line, Haneres Alo L'Kodeshem, is already against the Gemara. Gemara says, why is it also the Shtamish V'chi Kedusha yesh bo? But we follow the Masechah Sofrim. We act as if it does have Kedusha. So Rab Soloveitchik used to say this every year. One of the Talmidim of the Avnei Nezer made a suggestion. So he used to say it, he used to attribute it to the Avnei Nezer. It wasn't. One of the Talmidim of the Avnei Nezer had a suggestion that maybe they established, it says in Shana Cheres, the year after the Hashmonaim were victorious in battle, they made, the Bezdin made a Yontif every year to observe Chanukah. So the Yontif was that you say, Ala Nisim, you don't have Hesped B'Tainis, but the suggestion was that the halachas aneres, maybe that was only instituted after the Churban Abayis. When there's no longer Menorah in the Beis HaMikdash, this is zecher to the Menorah in the Beis HaMikdash. He could have said it was Bizman Abayis also, but it's zecher the Menorah, and we treat it like Kodesh. I don't know why he liked that idea, and he always used to say that he used to attribute to the Avnei Nezer. I don't think it's Avnei Nezer. They say it's one of the Talmidim of the Avnei Nezer. So this explained various things by him. Okay, stop here. I'm not going to be here Chanukah, so I got to say what I have to say now. Very good. How do you turn this off?
Thank you so much.
Ah.